Pluto, the tiny world at the edge of our solar system that captured hearts long before we ever saw it up close. For decades, we imagined it as a lonely, icy marble wandering in the dark, the little planet that could. But what if much of what we think we know about Pluto is wrong? What if the truth about this distant world is far stranger, more emotional, and more beautiful than anyone ever expected? Close your eyes for a moment and picture the sun warm, golden, the center of everything we know. Now, start drifting away from it, past Mercury's scorched rocks, past Venus's suffocating clouds, past the blue calm of Earth and the red deserts of Mars, beyond the gas giants, beyond the rings of Saturn and the storms of Neptune. Keep going until the sun shrinks to a bright star in an endless black sky. Somewhere out here, 5.9 billion kilometers away, Pluto drifts in silence. So far from warmth, yet somehow still alive. For most of the 20th century, Pluto was the ninth planet. Textbooks, teachers, even NASA scientists called it that with pride. But in 2006, everything changed. The International Astronomical Union, a group of scientists who decide how to name and classify celestial bodies, voted to strip Pluto of its title. Suddenly, the beloved ninth planet was demoted to something called a dwarf planet. And people around the world were heartbroken, felt like a betrayal. How could they take away something that had been part of our solar system family for so long? But here's the strange part. Most people still don't actually understand why it happened. They imagine it was just about Pluto being small or too far away. But the real story is more complex and more revealing about how science evolves. You see, the problem wasn't that Pluto wasn't interesting enough. It was that we had learned too much. When Pluto was discovered in 1930 by Clyde Tombaugh, astronomers thought it was huge, maybe as big as Earth. But as better telescopes came along, Pluto's size kept shrinking on paper. We realized it was only about 2/3 the size of our moon. Still, it was the only known world beyond Neptune. So it kept its crown. Then, in the 1990s, we found more. The Kuiper Belt, a vast region of icy debris beyond Neptune, began to reveal itself. Astronomers discovered dozens, then hundreds of small frozen bodies orbiting out there. And many of them were about the same size as Pluto. Some, like Eris, were even slightly larger. Suddenly, the question became impossible to ignore. If Pluto is a planet, why aren't all these other icy bodies planets too? That's when the redefinition happened. In 2006, scientists agreed that to be a planet, a body must orbit the sun, be round due to its own gravity, and here's the key, it must clear its orbit of other debris. Pluto failed that last rule. It shares its neighborhood with countless other icy objects, never fully dominating its orbital path. So, by that definition, Pluto lost its planetary status. But does that mean it's not special? Absolutely not. In fact, what we've learned since then shows that Pluto might be one of the most fascinating worlds in our solar system. Because when NASA's New Horizons spacecraft flew past Pluto in 2015, what it found was beyond anyone's imagination. Before New Horizons, Pluto was just a fuzzy blur in telescopes. But as the spacecraft approached, pixel by pixel, a new world began to appear. One painted in soft oranges and creams, with vast plains of nitrogen ice and jagged mountains made of frozen water. It was beautiful, alien, and hauntingly familiar all at once. One of the most striking discoveries was a vast heart-shaped region, an enormous bright plain now called Tombaugh Regio, named after Pluto's discoverer. Half of that heart is a massive icy basin known as Sputnik Planitia, filled with frozen nitrogen that constantly flows and reshapes the surface. It moves slowly, like glaciers on Earth, driven by Pluto's internal heat. Yes, you heard that right, heat. Even though it's billions of kilometers from the sun, Pluto somehow generates enough warmth to remain geologically active. Beneath its frozen crust, scientists believe there may be a hidden ocean of liquid water. Imagine that, an ocean, sealed under miles of ice, quietly existing in the darkness. That single possibility changes everything we thought we knew about what kinds of worlds might be alive in the cosmos. Another surprising truth is Pluto's atmosphere. Many imagine it as an airless rock, but in reality, Pluto has a thin, delicate layer of gas, mostly nitrogen with traces of methane and carbon monoxide. When sunlight hits its surface, it warms the ices just enough to create a faint, bluish haze that drifts into space. And as Pluto moves along its long, elliptical orbit, its atmosphere actually freezes and falls back onto the ground like snow. It's an entire world that breathes in slow motion. But here's something almost no one realizes. Pluto and its largest moon, Charon, are locked in a strange cosmic dance. Charon is so large compared to Pluto that the two orbit around a shared center of gravity that lies outside of either body. This means neither one technically orbits the other. Instead, they revolve together, forever facing one another, like two dancers holding hands in the dark. Some scientists even consider Pluto and Charon a double planet system, a pairing unlike anything else in our solar neighborhood. Charon itself is no ordinary moon. It shows cliffs and fractures miles deep, evidence of ancient geological shifts. Its surface hints at a violent past, perhaps an ocean that once froze solid, cracking the moon's crust open. Together, Pluto and Charon paint a picture of a dynamic, evolving world. Not a dead ball of ice, but something alive with motion, change, and even mystery. And that's where many of our misconceptions begin to fade. Because when most people think of Pluto, they think small, cold, irrelevant. But in reality, it's none of those things. Small? Yes, compared to Earth. But in the Kuiper Belt, size doesn't mean insignificance. Pluto is one of the most complex worlds out there, with mountains as tall as the Rockies and a surface chemistry unlike anything else we've found. Cold? Sure, but it's also active, reshaping itself even in that deep freeze. Irrelevant? Hardly. Studying Pluto helps scientists understand how the early solar system formed and how icy worlds may hide oceans and possibly life beneath their crusts. The deeper truth is that our solar system doesn't end with Neptune. It stretches far beyond, into a region filled with ancient leftovers from creation, a cosmic attic holding clues to our beginnings. Pluto is a doorway into that unknown. And through it, we're realizing that the solar system isn't a tidy collection of 8 neat planets, but a messy, living family of thousands of worlds, each with its own story. There's also something deeply human about Pluto's story. When it was demoted, many people reacted emotionally. Kids wrote letters to NASA asking for it to be reinstated. Newspapers called it a tragedy. It almost felt like a friend had been taken away. Why did we care so much? Maybe because Pluto, in its loneliness, reflects something about us. It's small, distant, overlooked, yet full of wonder. A survivor, clinging to existence at the edge of everything. We see ourselves in it. Even now, debates continue. Some planetary scientists argue that Pluto should still be considered a planet. They say the 2006 definition is too narrow, that it was based more on convenience than science. After all, clearing the neighborhood is a vague requirement. Even Earth shares its orbit with asteroids. And Pluto meets every other criterion. Its round shape, atmosphere, active geology, by all those measures, it behaves like a planet. In recent years, NASA scientists like Alan Stern, who led the New Horizons mission, have reignited the debate. He argues that planet should describe a world's intrinsic properties, not where it happens to orbit. By that logic, Pluto and even many moons would all count as planets. If that view ever takes hold, Pluto might one day reclaim its title. But maybe, in the end, it doesn't need to. Because what truly matters isn't what we call Pluto. It's what Pluto reveals about how we see the universe. Once upon a time, we thought Earth was the center of everything. Then we learned it wasn't. Then we thought the sun was the center. Then the galaxy. And now we know even that's just one island in a vast cosmic ocean. Every time we think we've drawn a neat border, the universe pushes it further away. Pluto reminds us of that humility, that our definitions are temporary, but discovery is eternal. Think about this: when New Horizons flew past Pluto, it was moving at over 14 kilometers per second. It had traveled for nearly 10 years through empty space just to get a few hours of data. And when it finally passed by, the entire world stopped for a moment to see what it had found. Billions of people looking at an image of a heart on a world billions of kilometers away. That single picture made humanity fall in love again with the unknown. Pluto's surface, with its heart-shaped plane, became a symbol of cosmic affection. A reminder that even at the coldest edge of the solar system, warmth can exist in unexpected places. It showed us that love and curiosity are not limited by distance. That even a tiny, icy world can hold an entire planet's worth of meaning. And the mysteries keep coming. Some scientists believe Pluto's hidden ocean might still be liquid today, insulated by layers of ice and antifreeze-like compounds. If true, it would join a growing list of worlds like Europa and Enceladus that could harbor the conditions for life. Imagine microscopic organisms, thriving in the dark beneath Pluto's frozen shell, surviving on chemical energy alone. The idea sounds impossible. But then again, so did everything about Pluto before we saw it up close. Even its orbit defies expectations. Pluto's path around the Sun is tilted and stretched, sometimes bringing it closer than Neptune, sometimes sending it far beyond. For 20 years, from 1979 to 1999, Pluto was actually closer to the Sun than Neptune was. But thanks to a precise orbital resonance, their paths never cross. It's a cosmic dance that's been stable for millions of years, a delicate gravitational choreography that nature somehow keeps perfectly balanced. So much of what we get wrong about Pluto comes from the limits of our imagination. We assume that small means simple, that distant means dead, that being demoted means being forgotten. But Pluto defies all of that. It's proof that even the smallest worlds can surprise us, that the edges of the map are where the most exciting stories often live. When you look up at the night sky tonight, find the faint constellation of Sagittarius. Somewhere deep in that direction, hidden among countless stars, is a tiny world with a heart on its surface, silently orbiting, waiting for sunlight that takes more than 5 hours to reach it. A world that has endured being misunderstood, mislabeled, even cast out, and yet continues to inspire millions back on Earth. That's not failure. That's resilience. And perhaps that's the greatest fact we get wrong about Pluto. We see it as the forgotten planet. But in truth, it may be the one that taught us the most important lesson of all. That exploration isn't about ranking worlds by size or distance. It's about finding meaning in the unknown, wonder in the overlooked, and beauty in the coldest corners of the cosmos. So, the next time you hear someone say Pluto isn't a planet, remember definitions come and go. But awe, that's eternal. And out there, on the frozen frontier, Pluto keeps orbiting, a tiny heart beating quietly at the edge of the sun's light. But maybe Pluto's story isn't really about astronomy at all. Maybe it's about perspective, about how easily we mistake labels for truth. Science is supposed to change. It's supposed to evolve as our instruments sharpen, as our understanding deepens. Pluto wasn't downgraded because it failed us. It was redefined because we learned more. And that's what makes its story so powerful. Every time we uncover something new about the universe, we're reminded that knowledge isn't static. It's alive, expanding, just like the cosmos itself. If you think about it, Pluto's exile mirrors humanity's own search for meaning. We too have been redefining ourselves for centuries. From thinking the Earth was the center of everything, to realizing we're just one tiny spark in an ocean of stars. And yet, instead of feeling small, we've chosen to feel curious. We reach out into the darkness not because we need to, but because something inside us refuses to stop wondering. That's the same spirit that sent new horizons across billions of kilometers of empty space. A quiet hope that even the loneliest corners of the universe might still hold beauty. Pluto's soft light, faint and cold, is the perfect symbol of that idea. It doesn't shine brightly like Jupiter or Saturn, but it reflects enough sunlight to whisper across the void. It reminds us that even the dimmest reflections can illuminate the unknown. Every image New Horizons sent back was an echo of that truth, that even the farthest worlds can still reach us, if we're willing to listen. And listen we did. For a few brief days in July 2015, humanity paused to stare at a distant, icy heart and realized something quietly profound. Distance doesn't diminish wonder. It only deepens it. That was the moment Pluto stopped being just a name in a textbook and became something much larger, a symbol of curiosity's endurance. Because even though we might never walk on its frozen plains or stand beneath its faint blue sky, simply knowing it exists fills us with the same feeling that our ancestors must have felt when they first looked up at the stars. Maybe that's what makes Pluto's story so special. It reminds us that the universe isn't made of categories. It's made of mysteries. Every world, no matter how small or forgotten, carries a piece of the cosmic story inside it. And somewhere, far beyond the orbit of Neptune, a tiny world continues to spin, its heart shimmering in the faint sunlight, carrying the dreams of everyone who ever looked toward the sky and wondered what else might be out there. So, if you ever feel small or insignificant or lost, remember Pluto. Remember that even at the edge of the solar system, a world of ice and shadow can still reflect light. Remember that being misunderstood doesn't mean being unimportant, and that sometimes the most powerful stories come from the quietest places. This is The Sleepy Minds. Thank you for drifting through the cosmos with us tonight. If you'd like to keep exploring the hidden corners of the universe, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and join us again, where science meets serenity and the mysteries never sleep.